everybody, I'm Tom Vasel. Welcome back to my ranking of all the heroes and villains of Marvel United. We're still closer to the end than we are to the beginning, but come on, I just like playing this game. So I like these heroes and villains. We're going to be taking a look at 5 heroes and 3 villains today, but we're taking a look at the same character twice. How is that possible? Well, let's see, starting with the heroes. Okay, let's start with Daredevil. Now, Daredevil has a lot of good stats. His fighting is his weakest point, but man, heroic is all over the place. He's definitely one of the best in that regard. And he gets tokens. I tend to like characters that get tokens. You know, gain a heroic token or a fighting token for each location you enter, and he has a movement, so you know he's getting 1. Gain a movement token for each person you defeat this turn, and he's going to fight, so he probably gets 1. Get 1 movement token for each person you rescue this turn, so he'll probably get 1. Other than that, he doesn't necessarily stand out, but he's a good utility person. If I'm building a team and I have maybe a strong powerhouse on the team and I have someone to support that person, and then I need a third person, well then maybe Daredevil's the person that I would throw in that mix. Not necessarily, you know, like he's not higher on my list here, but I still think he's useful in that regard. Okoye is kind of the opposite here. Almost no heroic, so 1 and a 2 there. Some movement, much more fighting. Now, I think she would be fantastic. She does 1 and 2 in an adjacent location. That's pretty good. Revealing the top card of your deck. I don't know that I like this card here, where she can take damage for somebody else. Okay, that sounds heroic. That's all well and cool. But why? I mean, it's like very situational. So, and again, it has to be someone in your location. So you're basically saying, don't hit this character, hit her instead. If she could take damage better, or if she was a stronger character, had a hand of 4, I don't know. If there was something about it that mattered. But I still like the character a lot. I like this miniature. It's a pretty nice miniature. I like the spear and everything. It's going to look really good, I think, when we paint it. But and she's a great character in the comics and such. But yeah, middle of the pack for me. All right, it's another character from the starter set, Black Widow. Black Widow has decent stats across the board. She's pretty well-rounded. What do you want? Heroics, fighting, movement. She has it all. She has a great card. That's what kind of brings her up from being near the bottom, that she can look at the top card of the Master Plan deck and put it on the bottom. This is pretty useful, and it's so useful they give it to you 3 times. I don't know. Sometimes with some of the villains, it doesn't matter. No matter what card they play, it's going to be bad. And so you look at it and you're like, well, they're going to move 1 and do this. It gives you information, but sometimes that information isn't useful unless Black Widow's the first character to go. I like this card. I don't know that I love it as much as everybody else. It gives you that intel. But she's still a pretty good, solid character. Another one of those, hey, she's the 3rd member of the team that I would pick. So the heroic version of Venom, not very heroic actually, which makes sense, right? He's about fighting, and he has a decent amount of movement. The healing factor, regeneration, drawing till you get 3 cards in your hand. Move to any location and hit there. This is my favorite card of his. That's just a very useful thing. Jumping somewhere on the board and hitting, and then here he can hit twice and move. Doesn't help his teammates, but he has several double cards. So overall, I think he's a pretty strong character if you're looking for someone with a little bit of strength, and that regeneration card doesn't hurt at all. And some people are going to play this just because they like Venom. And look at that. Venom always cracks me up with how he looks. Now, Gamora is a really intriguing character to me. I mean, she's a great character, has a cool miniature here. But she's a good fighter, has decent movement, not too hot in the heroic factor here. But all her cards have to do with spending tokens. So here, if she spends a wild or a fighting token, you get an extra action. You have 2 fighting tokens, and suddenly her ranking for fighting goes up to an A. But the reason I don't give her a higher fighting ranking is this is so subjective, because you need to be able to get these tokens. So you need another character who gives tokens, or you need location on the board that gives tokens. Without those, she's really one of my least favorite characters. With those, like if you mix her with the Guardians of the Galaxy, especially with Star-Lord who gives tokens, She's fantastic in that regard. But that's why she's not higher on the list here, because she's very subjective, that she works in a specific situation, and when she does that situation, she does it fantastic. But if you take her out of that situation, it's not as exciting at that point. So that's why she's where she's at. I think for some people, though, in the right spot, she could be their favorite character. All right, villain time. All right, so the first villain we're looking at is Taskmaster. Comes in the basic set. Taskmaster is an annoying villain, which he is in the comics too. Basically, he makes everything harder. Takes extra stuff to rescue people. Takes extra damage to do villains. You have to move twice. I really dislike this entangling trap. And he adds crisis tokens to locations. And you can't damage him as long as there's crisis tokens, so you need to get rid of those crisis tokens. And he does those every time he does a BAM. And he also has Dark Schemes, which says if there's no heroes in his location, put a crisis token there. So you know that's there. You're going to move to his spot. Add people to his location for each one of these symbols at the bottom of the last two hero cards in the storyline. Copycat, or add for fighting. That's basically his special ability in the comics. He can copy people's fighting styles. So he's interesting to fight against. I find him to be, like I said, annoying, because you're like, oh, you feel like there's this hurdle to overcome at the beginning. But as you take these cards out, he does become easier to beat, and he doesn't have a tremendous amount of life. So once you finally can hit him, one or two strong hits can take him out. Now we have Venom, who currently is the only character in the game who's both a hero and a villain. And in fact, let's take a quick look here at the two different models. They are different, so when they come out with their next set, they're going to have purple models, which can be used for both. But this one here is ripping a board off the ground. This one here is just, I don't know. The tongues are going in different directions. Anyway, so Venom is another person who's kind of annoying. He's trying to give you crisis tokens. You get a certain number of crisis tokens, you lose. And anytime he hits you, he does a damage to you. And if you have a crisis token, you get 2. And then he gives everyone a crisis token. So he's also killing people right and left. If he lands on here, you give crisis tokens to people. And so, if you overflow, you get a crisis token. So he's pretty easy to beat. To lose to, but he's also easy to beat, I think. He's easy to go after. This is one of the fastest villains. Whether you lose against it or beat it, he's going to be fast, because those crisis tokens are going to accumulate. You need to get around, you need to solve these, and you need to just beat on him really quickly. You do that, you win. If you delay it all with Venom, you're probably going to lose. And finally, today we're talking about Killmonger. Killmonger is another person who replaces people with crisis tokens. I don't find him to be tremendously unique. He has a very nuanced story, especially in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, I felt. Here he's one that you don't want to end in, because he has 2 of these dual cards. You don't want to end in the same spot as him. He'll do damage. I also don't like, if you end your turn in these 2 locations, you take 1 damage. That's really annoying. But then, here put a crisis token in different spots. When 4 more locations have 3 or more crisis tokens, he wins. And he goes over here and replaces people with crisis tokens. And he's dropping people on the board. So rescuing people is useful against him. I feel like he's fairly straightforward in how to beat him. He's a somewhat interesting character, but again, kind of middling of the pack for me. So there you go, Killmonger. All right, here's the sets that stuff came in, although I believe Venom was a Walmart exclusive. You had to buy the starter set from that, one of the versions of Venom, the hero version. But hey, so there you go. The stuff keeps getting better and better. I'm sure, like I've said in all my videos, that you might disagree where I personally rank these. Not a problem. Let me know. Maybe some of these are your favorites. Tell me in the comments. But we're going to keep going through this series. Until next time, I'm Tom Vasel, and this has been the best of Marvel United on the Dice Tower.